as we transition over to round 4. You mentioned Akers as somebody you like. If you want to dive into your case for him or anybody else that you really like, is this where you start maybe tapping into some receivers? And if so, who are you looking at?
I see how you have round 4 labeled RB dead zone. And I think it kind of is across more redraft sites. Like for this article, I use Fantasy Pros' consensus ADP. It took out, if you want to use their consensus PPR ADP, I think just taking out Fantasy Football Calculator for now, not to hate on them forever, but just take that out, take out NFL.com, and it gives you much more clear rankings. But you see these running backs like Antonio Gibson, Josh Jacobs, really up into round 4, round 5. And like, yes, that is the dead zone in that case. And like, even like Miles Sanders, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, some of these other guys in rounds 4, round 5.
Disgusting.
No. Yeah. And that's why it was the RB dead zone last year. But I will say an underdog, and I wonder, underdog is 3 wide receivers, so it's a little bit different, and it's best ball, so different strategy and scoring. But man, there's a lot more wide receivers you feel good about than some of these running backs after you kind of hit that dead zone. So all I'm saying is that guys like Jacobs, Gibson, we don't like them in round 4 and round 5, but I said all the time, don't hate the player, hit the ADP. If we start seeing dead zone running backs going in round 6, 7, 8, all of a sudden they're not in the dead zone. They're, mid to late round running backs that we can get behind more. Like Cordero Patterson is someone that I would consider a dead zone running back in round 4 or 5, just like Mike Davis was last season. But when Cordero Patterson's going round 8 or 9, that's much more reasonable, particularly on rosters where you're taking guys like Mike Williams or Michael Pittman or Terry McLaurin in round 4. So that's just would be my thing here. Like, I think the way the draft is set up, like there's so much room to fill any position of need in round like 7 through 11. You can still get pretty high quality players across every single position. So don't, even if you leave, first 3 rounds only with 1 running back or something, like don't reach on someone like a Jacobs or Gibson just because you need to. So that'd be my big strategy there. But yeah, Cam Akers, man, again, just, the Sean McVay stat real quick. Last year, it was Najee Harris had 11 games with at least 80% of the offensive snaps. No other running back had more than 5, but both Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel hit 5 games, in their respective tenures as the Rams lead RB1. So every time Akers has been out there, man, he's just been featured. And when you get to round 4, it's like, even if he doesn't have the 90% snap rate or workload, like you're telling me he couldn't just score double-digit touchdowns as the relatively lead back, with a sort of like Javonte Williams split. Like Cam Akers is basically like, being treated as like a not good Javonte Williams, which I think that's okay in round 4. Like I'll sign up for that. And God forbid the guy is a little bit healthier, this time around. I think there's a lot of upside there with Cam Akers. I think Graham Barfield, fantasy points over with Scott Barrett, made a good point where you could argue Akers is actually being priced a lot closer to his floor than ceiling. And I like Darrell Henderson where he's going too. I think both Rams running backs are really underpriced. I've consistently been going out of my way when I don't get Akers to get Henderson later.
Yeah, get one of them for sure. I mean, the guy saw 19.25 opportunities when he came back 6 months from a torn Achilles in the playoffs. Like, come on. No shit, he didn't look that great or explosive, but they still fed him. I think that was very indicative of what they would like to do for the future as well. So yeah, I like Akers at his price. Of course, an Achilles injury is worrisome, but that's a great way to put it. Price at the floor where the ceiling, I mean, there's no, similar to Pitts being a potential first rounder. I wouldn't be shocked to see Akers approaching first rounds next year if he goes out and gets 18 to 20 touches a game in the Rams offense. Like that's a gold mine of an opportunity. We just look no further than Todd Gurley just a few years ago, how great that could be. But yeah, I put the dead zone question mark because especially on underdog, we're seeing, Zeke Elliott, Breece Hall falling. Like, Zeke's a tricky one. I know how inefficient he started to get, but he still was the RB6 on a torn PCL. It's the offense that led the league in total yardage and points last year. And they continue to say keystone player, the focus of the backfield, 285 touches in every single year other than, actually over 300 opportunities every single year other than 2017 when he was suspended 6 games, still saw 280. I mean, the guy just gets work and a good offense. I get the whole be a year early versus be a year late. I still think this is a guy, he's still not that old. He's had big workloads. He's as healthy as can be, only 27 right now and about as juicy of a situation. So I liked at the top where you said, like, you want to have at least 2 running backs through 4 rounds. Like 100%, I can't leave my 4 rounds. There are some good guys later. If you end up going 0 running back, don't reach on those Gibsons and Jacobs. That's just the dead zone. That's when it gets hideous. But to me, a Zeke, maybe even a Breece Hall, the Cam Akers toss out, I think the dead zone's pushed back a little bit, at least on underdog. Those guys might go a little earlier in the home leagues on the Fantasy Pro stuff. But I don't mind the running backs at all. And I really like to have 3 out of my first 4 picks be those running backs, because I think it is a brutal drop off till around like 9 or 10 or so. I don't want any of those Jacobs, those Gibsons, especially with some of the receivers we're about to talk about going in that rounds like 5 through 7 range. I think there's some real strong candidates to be wide receiver ones. If you were going receiver in this range, is there any name that does stand out to you as a round 4 guy?
If Mike Williams is there, man, like I think he's a top 12 wide receiver, and it's just shocking to me to see some of the ADP. So I almost like, again, it's almost like I don't believe like that he'd even be available this late in the draft. But hey, if that's I guess what the ADP is going to tell us, I mean, absolutely. You could argue last season he was already, I don't know that he was overtaking Keenan Allen, but at this point, it doesn't really need to. If he's going to have more of the deep field stretcher role to begin with and getting a lot more red zone opportunities, like it's okay if he has 20 fewer targets on the season than Keenan. He can still make up for that, kind of like he did last year. So last year, I mean, just overall finish is not PPR points per game, but he was still top 20 in both. I just think, anytime you can get Justin Herbert's number 2, they just paid him big time, didn't add any real competition there. Like Mike Williams is someone that, and it's one of those things, man, like the critique is like, oh, you take out all these games where he went the hell off and what did he do? It's like, come on, man. I think you can argue, like, I know, how many times are we gonna say freaking Scott Barrett in this podcast? But his like you just brought up specifically his upside article, and I think that was one of the points there that was like we kind of want someone that can give us these booms and stuff. It gets we just have this habit of remembering the bad things in life. So guys like Tyler Lockett, Mike Williams, and stuff, we're like, oh yeah, all those bad games. Like, well, the good ones that just single-handedly win your week are pretty cool as well. I would say out of the other guys, the one I've been consistently getting the most, I think he's my highest owned underdog receiver, is Terry McLaurin. Carson Wentz is the best quarterback of his career. You look at the deep ball ability. It's sad for sure.
But like, it just makes you laugh, but it's true.
He is objectively the best one. And like Heineke was by far the league's worst deep ball passer last season. I mean, when he like unironically like waved Terry deeper and then underthrew him and got him concussed against the Cowboys. Like, I don't know if there's a play last season that just made me more pissed off than that. So, McLaurin got paid. Undisputed number 1. Like if Terry McLaurin gets 150, 60 targets, it's not going to surprise a single person. And I just think Wentz, man, like, okay, he's not great, but we have this inability to like just accept that someone's like a top 20 or a top 25 quarterback. If they're not top 10 or 12, like they just suck and there's like nothing else to be said about it. And Wentz, man, my God, he's literally going as like the QB 29, 30 on a lot of these drafts. Like if you get Terry in like round 4 or whatever, and we'll talk about quarterbacks here in a second. On underdog in best ball, you need multiple quarterbacks just to help fill the bye. So it's like, again, I don't want to be the Wentz guy, but are you telling me like you really want to take like Tua or Trevor Lawrence in rounds 12 or 13 when you can get Wentz or Jared Goff in rounds 17, 18? Mm-hmm. I just think, again, rankings are fine, but having a tier-based strategy and just, again, being willing to kind of take values at the right spots of the draft, I think that's how you finish up a draft and you look at your lineup from top to bottom and you're just like, hell yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will say on Williams too, I've come around on him a lot lately. I was reading an article about Herbert just being like, our offense changes without him. We need to get this guy back, pay him whatever it takes. Like, I love him. They've been working out like every day in the offseason. So to see him take it to another level, which is already kind of scary because he was a fringe wide receiver 1 last year. There's every chance he could overtake Keenan Allen as early as this year. He's getting up there in age for sure. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.